Epstein is the one who introduced Melania and Donald Trump to one another here in New York City. And
what happens when old photos, old friendships, and old party circles get dragged back into the spotlight? What happens when history refuses to stay buried, even when the people involved would do anything to forget it? Tonight, we're diving into the real, documented, on-the-record connections between Donald Trump, Melania Trump, and Jeffrey Epstein. Not rumors, not invented scandals, but the actual timeline of events that the media still can't stop talking about. And trust me, when you see how their worlds crossed, uncrossed, and collided again years later, you'll understand why this story refuses to die. So sit tight, because this begins long before politics, long before the White House, back when the most powerful people in New York and Palm Beach,
and it was a big party, so we met.
Were all partying in the same rooms. The early years, the social circle everyone wanted in on. Let's rewind to the late 1980s and 1990s. Back then, Donald Trump wasn't a president. He was a billionaire playboy developer whose name dominated New York tabloids. Jeffrey Epstein was not yet infamous. He was simply another wealthy figure on the social scene, known for money, yachts, and mystery. Their paths crossed naturally. Same city, same circles, same elite charity events, same high-end galas, same Palm Beach social ladder. There wasn't anything unusual about it. At first, they weren't best friends. They weren't business partners, but they were absolutely, unquestionably social acquaintances. And as Trump himself once said in 2002, he's a terrific guy. He likes beautiful women as much as I do. A quote that would later age like milk in a microwave. This was long before Epstein became a globally known criminal. Most people in those circles had no idea what he was truly involved in. Still, the photos would come back to haunt everybody. Melania enters the picture, a quiet presence in a loud world. By the mid to late 1990s, Donald Trump meets Melania Knaus, a model who carried herself nothing like the loud Manhattan socialites. She was private, careful, observant, and yes, there are photos of Donald and Melania at the same events as Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Not because they were close friends, but because all of Manhattan's high-profile charity events pulled the same 200 people into the same ballroom every month. It wasn't personal. It was proximity. Melania wasn't a political figure. She wasn't even Melania Trump yet.
How poetic would it be if Melania Trump held the key to the Epstein files that could expose the Donald once and for all?
She was simply attending events with her partner, the same events that attracted billionaires, celebrities, and power brokers from every direction. The important part? She had no documented relationship with Epstein herself. None. Not personal, not professional, not social, but in the internet era, photos become weapons, even when they mean nothing. And after 2016, those same old snapshots would ignite a war online. The falling out, Trump slams the door shut. Something major happened around 2004. Trump and Epstein, who used to cross paths often in Palm Beach. Why? Because Trump banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. This is one of the most important factual pieces of the entire story. A reported incident involving Epstein and a young woman at the club triggered Trump to cut ties entirely. This wasn't political. This wasn't about 2016. It happened years earlier. From that point on, Trump and Epstein's social universes split like tectonic plates. They were no longer photographed together. They weren't attending the same parties. They weren't friends. And when Epstein was arrested in 2008 and again in 2019, Trump was quick to say, "I had a falling out with him a long time ago." For once, the timeline backs him up. But that didn't protect him, or Melania, from what came next.
Net to be cast here than just one person, as you know, because he can't do it alone.
The resurfacing, the internet digs everything back up. Fast forward to the late 2010s. Trump is president. Melania is first lady. Every movement, every expression, every old photograph is suddenly under a microscope. And that's when it happens. Old images from the 1990s and early 2000s get dragged back into the spotlight. Trump smiling next to Epstein, Melania standing next to Ghislaine Maxwell at a public event. the classic Palm Beach party photo that everyone has seen 1,000 times. Were they unusual back then? No. But after Epstein's 2019 arrest and mysterious death, those same photos became dynamite. Not because they were shocking, but because the public's appetite for scandal was so intense, even a meaningless photograph became a headline. And suddenly, Trump and Melania weren't just fighting political battles. They were fighting their own past social circles, even if they never expected those circles to matter someday. The media turns up the heat. When context disappears, chaos begins. This is where the real storm begins. News outlets wanted ratings. Online creators wanted viral moments, political rivals wanted ammunition, and Epstein, a name already soaked in scandal, was a goldmine for clicks. So context disappeared, nuance vanished. Old acquaintances were treated like sinister alliances. Photographs from open, crowded events were treated like secret meetings. Trump himself tried to push back. "We weren't friends, I threw him out of Mar-a-Lago." Melania stayed silent, as she often does. But silence doesn't stop a narrative once it catches fire. The internet explodes, the war for narrative control. By 2020, the public wasn't just interested in Epstein, they were obsessed. Documentaries skyrocketed.
It's a big unanswered question about Epstein is, you hear there's been a lot of, people going out and
Conspiracy theories exploded. Timelines, charts, diagrams, entire internet communities formed around tracing who knew Epstein, when, and how. Donald Trump and Melania, not because they were uniquely connected, but because they were the highest profile couple in the world. And when you're the president and first lady, you don't get the luxury of context. You don't get the benefit of, it was just a charity gala. You don't get to say, everyone was in those rooms, because the public doesn't want nuance. They want villains. They want heroes. They want secrets. And suddenly, Trump wasn't being criticized for policy. He was being dragged for who appeared next to him in a 25-year-old photograph. Melania under the microscope, the first lady who refused to play the game. Melania Trump is, without question, one of the most scrutinized first ladies in modern history, not because she sought attention, but because she avoided it. And that made her unpredictable, unreachable, unreadable. But here's the reality, the factual bottom line. Melania Trump has no known personal relationship, communication, or association with Jeffrey Epstein. None. Zero. She was simply present at public events where Epstein and others were also present, which was normal for Manhattan social life at the time. But the internet doesn't care about normal. The internet cares about shock, and the shock was more valuable than the truth. The documentary era. Every clip, every photo, every quote resurrected. When streaming platforms jumped into the Epstein story, the marketing alone was explosive, and every time these documentaries released, anyone who had ever crossed paths with Epstein got thrown back into the spotlight. Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, Bill Gates, Kevin Spacey, Leon Black, Donald Trump.
To follow the law, to investigate any leads. If there are any victims, we encourage all victims to come forward.
Even socialites and Wall Street figures who barely knew the man. And because the Trump presidency was the most polarizing era in recent American history, any storyline that touched Trump caught fire instantly. Old images resurfaced again. Old interviews resurfaced again. The internet turned into a forensic lab, and Trump and Epstein became one of its favorite puzzles, the split screen moment. Two men, two legacies, one shadow. Here's where the story becomes almost cinematic. Donald Trump, a former president, a political force, a media figure who thrives in chaos. On the other side, Jeffrey Epstein, a deceased financier whose crimes cast a shadow over an entire generation of elites. Not because of what happened, but because of what people imagine. And in politics, imagination can be far more dangerous than reality. And that is the untangled truth behind Trump, Melania, and Epstein. The real connections, the real timeline, and the real reasons this story refuses to disappear. If you want more deep dives just like this, the stories behind the headlines, the truth inside the chaos, then make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and share this video. Because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.